Hey there, friends. As most of you who are keeping up with the story know, a lot of news is finally starting to trickle in about the Appalachia school shooting yesterday in Georgia. We're being told that this is a 14-year-old student of the school who committed this atrocity, killing 2 young people and 2 adults, wounding 9 others. Timeline of the shooting shows that the suspected shooter left his classroom at the beginning of their Algebra 1 class around 9:45 a.m. When he returned near the end of the class, he knocked to get back in. Another student went to the door, but said that the student noticed the gun that the person had at this point and didn't open the door. She said the shooter went to the classroom next door and opened fire. Apparently somebody did let him in there. Now that's pretty quick thinking and a great observation by this student. I believe that's Layla Sayarath. I'm horrible at pronouncing names, so no disrespect meant here. This is kind of an implication that the student likely did not have the gun on him, possibly in a locker or a hidden location on campus. We'll obviously find out more about that because, again, the student was captured live and will likely tell them all this information. I'm sure they're going to rough him up, and a 14-year-old is going to spill the beans. So, again, it seems like he left to get the firearm, came back, and this very keen, eagle-eyed student, this is awesome, spotted that and would not let him in. That's pretty big. Sheriff's Department received the first reports of the shooting around 10:20. This was about 35 minutes after the student left the class, but they did state that he came back with the gun towards the end of the class, so that could have been nearly immediately once the shooting actually started from the time the guy left the class and came back. Law enforcement arrived shortly after those calls, in addition to 2 school resource officers assigned to Appalachia High. A resource officer confronted the shooter, who immediately surrendered to the deputy and was taken into custody. Now, this alone is a perfect example of guns in schools do help. There were on-site resource officers. I've heard 2, I've heard 3. Doesn't matter. This guy was stopped. His rampage was ended by encountering armed people. I don't care who they are. It was a person with a gun. A good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy with a gun. You can paint that however you want. Oh, law enforcement are the only ones who can save us. Well, they would have been more than just moments away if there hadn't been somebody on site. So let's stop with the law enforcement is who's going to protect us. No, somebody on site engaged this person and stopped this from being way worse than what it was. We're being told that it's an AR style weapon. We don't know if that's 5.56 or 9mm, but nevertheless, we're still talking about somebody who would have had a lot more time had someone, a good guy with a gun, not been on campus to halt this attack. Now, make no mistake, I am certainly not implying or suggesting that all teachers should be armed. Absolutely not. Heck, I don't think all law enforcement should be armed. I've seen how some handle firearms, and I've seen the mental capabilities of some of them. So I certainly don't think all teachers should be armed. There should be very strict requirements to carry a firearm around my child. I expect there to be very strict requirements and requalification requirements if teachers are ever allowed. Now, we'll say this real quick. Pretty cool device that was allowed also to send a signal out. I don't know who actually pressed the button, but these teachers just got some new technology. It's essentially a button that is on their ID cards, and this button allows them to press it when there's an active shooter. So by doing that, it activates this system. So it's like a system that goes out to the internet. So it's not just local, but it does notify local people, obviously. And I think that was also a key player in this as well. Likely the teacher where the girl saw the gun through the window and did not let the boy in the room, that's probably who pushed the button and probably saved a lot of time and allowed those resource officers to get alerted quickly, hunt this guy down. They actually geo-track too. So wherever the location is that is pressed shows you where it is. So that might have helped that resource officer get to the location where that actual classroom was where the shooting was taking place, because it identified where that person was. Pretty cool little device. I don't know much about it, but this was interesting that this was implemented just weeks ago and actually used this soon. The 14-year-old is at the Gainesville Regional Youth Detention Center. He is being charged as an adult. Georgia school shooting suspect Colt Gray will make his first court appearance on Friday. Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice Communications Director Glenn Allen told CNN. Though he will be charged as an adult, he is being held again in juvenile custody right now, and he is a juvenile. Georgia Bureau of Investigation Director Chris Hosey said in a news conference Wednesday night that the authorities still are investigating how the suspect brought an AR platform style weapon that was used in the shooting into the school. That's going to be a big question I have. All these talking heads out there that are beating their drums right now saying how we need to ban guns. Not one of them can explain how somebody walked into a school with their dreaded AR style weapon. Nobody can explain that. I don't care what you ban, unless you are magical and can make everything disappear. There will still be items out there that you ban. As long as you still allow those things to make their way into schools and on campuses, you've stopped nothing. You've stopped honest, law-abiding people from defending themselves with those items that you banned. But the criminals and killers will still have them, and as long as you refuse to make our schools safe, they will still walk right into schools with these same now illegal items that you banned because you thought that was the solution. Now, law enforcement did question this 14-year-old last year about threats to commit a school shooting. He was questioned by law enforcement last year regarding several anonymous tips about online threats to commit a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. The online threats included photographs of guns, according to the statement. I don't know how the photograph of a gun is a threat unless it was attached to the actual threat. The suspect and his father at the time were interviewed by the county sheriff's office. The father stated that he had hunting guns in the house, but the suspect, the 14-year-old, did not have unsupervised access to them. The subject denied making the threats online. I have to question that, because if they narrowed it down from an entire state down to a county, down to somebody's home, the person that they thought made the threat, and there were pictures, surely they could tell that it was this 14-year-old who had done this, right? I mean, by him saying, I didn't do it, what did he say? Somebody hacked my account? Something silly like that? Isn't that what everybody else says whenever they make stupid comments online? So I wonder why the police, why the sheriff's department said, after the 14-year-old said, I didn't make the threat, they went, okay, well, we're done here. Again, I'm not a red flag law person. Everybody's crying about red flags right now, wanting to implement them. No. That's never a solution. It never will be, and it will be abused and misused. That would not have solved this. My point is, maybe lock the kid up. Instead of letting him say, I didn't make that threat. Put his ass in detention anyway. Let him see what it's like. Let him see the life that he's going to lead if he wants to continue to make these stupid threats. Because after this kid said, I didn't do it, then what? Right? What did law enforcement do then? Is it like the OJ thing, where when OJ said, I'm acquitted, I didn't do it, everybody stopped looking for the killer? So when this kid made this threat and then he denied making the threat, did law enforcement go, well, that's not it? If they did, then they knew that that kid was the person who made the threat and they walked away from it. Now, if they kept looking and just never found anybody, that's a different story. My guess is they quit looking because they knew that kid was the one, and they just cleaned their hands of it and said, well, he denied it, so we're going to move on. If you have enough evidence at that time, you make the right decision according to the evidence that you have, if you know you have the right person. Again, this is a process. There is due process involved. You don't just go snatch the kid up, but there is a process. Quit telling me they slipped through the cracks. Now, this hasn't stopped some of the opportunistic people. Of course, we have the gun grabbers out there beating drums. We have politicians screaming about AR-15s again. We're close to an election season, so everybody's high-fiving themselves. Make no mistake, the leftists high-five each other and the gun grabbers when this kind of stuff happens. I'm sorry, that's probably going to hurt some feelings. I know some of you are going to get mad. Oh, nobody would ever do that. Yes, they do. They don't see victims who were shot as people. Now, they act like they do, but they don't really see them as that. They see them as victories. They see people who are hit with firearms, hit with rounds. They see them as opportunities to further their cause. Every politician and every anti-gun person out there is happy when these shootings happen. Now, you don't see that emotion. You don't see them act happy. They're happy in here. They're happy in here. But right here, they're sad. They're sad because this happened again. How many children have to die? That's all fake. That's all fake. They are glad when these children die because they have an agenda. This helps fulfill that agenda. I don't care who gets mad. I don't care who gets upset. This is an absolute fact. These people are genuinely excited whenever this kind of stuff happens. But again, you never see that on their faces. Here's one of the people here. This is the attorney that was successful in prosecuting the Michigan parents whose son had his firearm and killed people with it, and both parents went to jail over it. This lady is the new, whatever his name is, the Crump attorney, who is the ambulance chaser. This is the new one for when children take guns from their parents or any family members. This is going to be the face you see. So she's already come out and wanting to get hired by somebody. So look for her to seek out somebody with a law license in Georgia where she can head up the next trial that's going to sue the parents of this Georgia shooter. Now, state-run CNN was really quick to jump on this also. You know, they're extremely anti-gun, anti-Constitution, and they were quick to spread lies. I'm quick to debunk their lies. They state there have been at least 45 school shootings in the United States so far this year as of September 4th. That's a lie. That's not true. These people are lying to your face. You know how many there have been? 2. I know where they are. I know what happened. Perry, Iowa, January 4th of this year. That was a school shooting. And then Appalachia High School, September 4th. That's the second one. These people state 13 of these shootings were on college campuses, which that right there tells you that they're lying, because you know how college campuses sprawl. This could have been in a parking garage at a college campus that I've shown many times using the Gun Violence Archive's lies. There have been instances where people have had road race incidents where they weren't even students of the school that stopped in front of the school parking lot. Somebody pulls a gun out and they say that is a school shooting, even though nobody gets shot. If the firearm is deployed anywhere near what they call a school, even if it's a college, they will call that a school shooting. They say that 32 were on K through 12 grounds. There was 2 on K through 12 grounds. Now, they actually tell where their lie comes from. They explain their lie. CNN cross-checks these reports of school shootings against school and police accounts and media reports. All incidents of gun violence are included if they occurred on school property, from kindergartens through colleges, universities, and at least one person was shot, not including the shooter. School property includes, but is not limited to, buildings, fields, parking lots, stadiums, and buses. So these people just explained to you how they came to that lie, that there were, 45 school shootings so far this year, when there was 2. It's Gary and Rodney slinging dope at 2 a.m. in the morning at the basketball goal of the local school across the street from where they live. That's where they sell their dope. Somebody shorted them. There was a gunfire, gun shootout, whatever. That's a school shooting. That is what CNN calls a school shooting. Gary and Rodney shooting at each other at the tennis courts across the street from a school. But teachers park there, so that's considered the parking lot. School shooting. 2 a.m. in the summer when school is not even in session. There could be a shootout at 10 schools in the middle of July at the parking lots across the street from the schools. Again, in July when school is not in session, and that would be considered 10 school shootings. These people are lying to you. They are flat out liars. All that matters to them is furthering an agenda and stigmatizing gun owners and guns. That's all their goal is. They're not the least bit interested in the truth. If they were interested in the truth, they would state and break these numbers down. Technically speaking, only 2 of these shootings were during school hours and happened on school campus. Instead, they include the other 43 examples of Gary and Rodney shooting at each other at different times outside of school hours, or they're 3 blocks away and they're shooting celebratory fireworks with their guns, right? Shooting the guns up in the air, and one of the rounds hits the school 3 blocks away. Again, celebrating July 4th, so probably midnight or whatever. Outside of school hours and not during school at all during the summer. And it wasn't even, in many cases, gun, quote, violence. It's literally a round falling out of the sky. We actually had a report of celebratory gunfire from this July 4th, and the Gun Violence Archive actually classified that as a mass shooting. Because 4 people got hit with rounds that came down and hit them. Nobody was mad. Nobody was upset. They were shooting in celebratory fashion. I'm not saying that's okay. That's stupid. What I'm saying is it was not a mass shooting. No more than somebody 3 blocks away hitting a school with a round, shooting it up in celebratory fashion. Again, stupid to do that. Stupid to classify that as a school shooting. No kids were ever in danger. Your child was at home, sound asleep. This chart that took a little bit of work to put together is a complete lie. What's funny is in my investigation, I've actually shown how when temperatures get warmer, your shootings actually go up because more people get out, right? It's a fact. I mean, it's a statistical fact. If you look, during your winter months, your numbers always go down. May-ish is whenever you start seeing more of a spike, and that will go up and stay up right until about November-ish, and those numbers come back down again for the winter months. In the same fashion, somehow, old Southerners are part of the problem, right? Here's also a slide that they put out. Parts of the South and Mid-Atlantic have higher rates of school shootings. We also have higher temperatures. So that means that the wackos, the Garys and the Rodneys are out there shooting throughout more of the year than these people in these northern states because it's warmer. These people won't do any cross checks to try to get any kind of correlation or just checking their facts, like what's the real cause. That's why you know these people are liars. They don't look at that. Well, I wonder if something else impacted that. No, they just assume because it's in the South, it must be a South problem. It's not a South problem. There's nut jobs from one end of this country to the other, top to bottom. It has nothing to do with location other than the weather is impacting whether or not these people are going outside to sling dope. And just real quick, I want to show this slide also that CNN shared. It's completely incorrect. This is how many mass shootings there have been so far this year compared with past years. I've debunked this every single month. I'm yet to do the shootings for August from the Gun Violence Archive, but the purpose for me showing this is not only do I know that this entire graph is a lie, look down at the bottom, they're citing the Gun Violence Archive. So again, the Gun Violence Archive is getting clicks out of this, so they're incentivized to lie to the American people and to provide this kind of information to these gun grabbers and these nutbags out there who simply want to ban guns and infringe upon our own rights. This is a tool for them, and the Gun Violence Archive, they will not explain to me who funds their project. When you won't tell anybody who funds your project, you know there's a reason for it. Somebody's paying for the Gun Violence Archive to continue to act independent and act like a third party and to provide them the tools they need to bamboozle the American public and lie to them. In closing, this is a horrible thing. No matter what, people lost their lives, people were hurt. Some people will experience legitimate PTSD, not the hurt feelings and the silly stuff that you'll probably hear about, but some people will legitimately experience this. I heard about a student who was trying to stop the bleeding of his teacher, and that's just insane. We have to do something to harden these schools, to keep these kids from being sitting ducks in these soft targets like this. And as long as we keep ignoring it and voting down like the Democrats keep voting down hardening these schools, this is a problem we will continue to have. I mentioned earlier in a post that the guns themselves will not go away. You can make a difference. Politicians can. All this money, the billions, $60 billion we send to Ukraine to protect their borders and their people. Yet we can't protect our own borders and our children in our schools. That's our fault. And I say our fault, is not mine. I voice my opinion, and many of you do too. We have got to talk to these politicians and tell them, quit politicizing this. I'm not going to let you ban guns, so you may as well go ahead and make the children safer. If a person cannot get into a school, they cannot kill a child in that school. My sincere condolences to the families of Mason Schermerhorn, 14-year-old student killed in this horrible attack. Christian Anguilo, a 14-year-old student also killed in this senseless killing. Richard Aspinwall, a teacher who was killed in this senseless killing. He's also a defensive coordinator for the football team of the school. And Christina Irami, a teacher at the school who also lost her life in this. What a horrible, horrible thing to happen to these seemingly good people. Folks, it's time for us to quit getting defensive when things like this happen. It's not our fault. This had nothing to do with any of us. We're all responsible gun owners. There's no fault of mine in this. There's no reason for me to feel like I can't comment on some idiot's post on Facebook talking about banning guns after something like this. You don't sit here and disenfranchise a whole subset of people who are doing the right thing because one person chose to do something wrong. It's time for us to be more offensive and stop being defensive in cases like this. And when some idiot asks you why, how many kids does it have to take, or some stupid question, the same old stuff we always hear. It's time for us to follow that back up with, why do y'all keep voting against protecting our children in these schools? And tell them the same thing I always say. If somebody cannot get into the school, they cannot shoot the children.
I don't understand the point that you're making.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's so horrible.